computer. There we go. Okay. So forgive me, everyone. I'm letting people in. So if that's if you see that popping up on my screen, I'll try to tuck it out of the way. All right. Let's get started. So we're talking about prospect prioritization, how to get to your most likely prospect, right? And this is interesting to all of us because we're all, we used to talk in the 60s and 70s about the world is moving faster. And boy, howdy, my aunts who were talking about that, yeah, they would be rolling their eyes right now at us. So, but let's do some, we have some new people who are joining us, we could tell by the sign-up list. So we just want to share with you the culture of our water cooler chats. Greg and Ruthie were setting the tone earlier by just chatting. And so at any time, you are welcome to unmute. Because I have one screen, I can't see anyone. So please go right ahead and leave your camera off and enjoy your lunch. If you'd like us to just entertain you, that's what we can do. But we don't do an entire 45-minute slide presentation. We present for about 20 minutes, and then we try to get conversation going. So anytime interject conversation, anytime reply to anybody else in the chat. Most of us are prospect researchers, so we tend to chat. If you are a gift officer and you want to talk, please do. Okay? And also we ask lots of questions. How do you do it in your shop? And that helps us, all of us here. Okay, let's see if I can present and let people in at the same time. And thank you, Greg and Ruthie, for helping me with the chat room. All right, so here's a few things to know. The first thing is that indicators that increased engagement is a signal that comes from someone, okay? And there are all kinds of, we think that for-profit companies already have this down, right? They already have it nailed. But really what it comes down to is that everybody's trying to figure it out. Increased engagement is when somebody says, I have some more interest, somebody's behavior changes, right? And if you have ever raised children, or if you are raising children, there's the point where the kids go quiet. That's an indication that they're up to something, right? For us, it's the other way around. There's a point where the audience member pops up, and I call it raising the hand. And you'll actually see a raising the hand graphic later on. There's Valeria. Okay, so the first one is I raise my hand by increasing the velocity of my engagement. I'll explain velocity in the next few slides. The other is we're all excited about RFM these days. So the other one is RFM, and we teach RFM, and I actually have a big fat RFM book that I'm studying to do something called Extreme RFM as one of the courses that I want to offer this year. Or I jump a giving level, right? And the easiest way for us nonprofits to interpret that or to see it or notice it is I jump a recognition level. The other thing is that I reach out to you over the transom or completely unsolicited or out of nowhere. I suddenly reach out to you. And then the other one is I brag about my relationship with you to my social pages. My social pages are the places where you can find me, right? I mean, I can brag to you about you to my family, but unless somebody in my family is doing a contact report for the organization, you're not going to catch me, okay? Or the other thing is that because we're all fantastic people, we will also notice when wealth or a situation changes. Excuse me. So are you ready? You don't have to say so because I won't see it. Okay. So here's the hand raising thing that I mentioned. I talk about prospects' footprints as a way of doing analysis on what the prospect is like or thinking or doing, right? So the raising hand is a way to say, hello, hi, how are you, right? That's my talking about indicators that I'm ready to engage more fully in your organization, either because my situation changes, your situation has changed, or my relationship to your organization has changed, right? So I indicate when I'm ready to give. Now, in personal relationships, we don't always have the courage to say, hello, I'd like to go out with you again, right? Or hello, I'd like to spend more time with you. But in nonprofit relationships, we usually say it. The problem is that we sometimes say it with a sense of entitlement, and we expect the nonprofit to notice it and then give us a lot more recognition than we really paid for it, all that sort of stuff. So I have to say, and I'm probably going to say it every time I speak now, I'm really looking forward to community-based fundraising taking over the entitlement fundraising base. And that's actually going to help erode the whole concentration of wealth. But that's me and my social. That's me and my politics. Okay, your job though is to notice those indicators in time. Okay, and the way that you notice those indicators in time is what we're gonna share a few tips for. But also, please talk back to us. We have someone here who's on the amazing team at Swarthmore College, where they are constantly studying new techniques to understand prospects and analyze wealth. So so I hope that everybody, including Kim, will pop up and say stuff. Okay. The other thing, though, is that it's your job to continually to build the relationship so that not only you have the listening in place, but also that the prospect feels comfortable saying something. If the only time I hear from an organization is, thank you for your gift last year around this time, by the way, your canceled check was your receipt. This actually happened to me. Wouldn't you like to give again this year? That's not building the relationship. That's, oh yeah, you gave last year. Can you do that again? Right. Also, they were lying about the check. I was supposed to get an actual receipt. All right. But let's talk about one of these methods. And do I have any questions or comments? I don't, right?
Not yet.
Okay, thanks, Ruthie. Okay, so let's talk about one of them is velocity. And I picked this up from Andy Rear, who founded the Rear Group, which is now a product at Blackbaud. Fundraising Prospect Management, FPM. Blackbaud does everything in three initials now. Okay, and I got to use his product, and that was cool. But he taught me back in 2002 about using velocity. And velocity it's just like it is in physics. What is the escalation? Okay, and what is the escalation of giving? So if I'm like 100, 100, 100, 200, my velocity is 2 to 1. I doubled. Okay. And so what is my velocity right now? Right. That's what we talk about. What was my velocity just before the highest gift I ever gave? And I constantly brag about this. I'll probably get a phone call one day saying, you need to stop talking about it. But we figured it out when I was at Carnegie Mellon, what the velocity was before a prospect's major gift. And we figured out that it was 2.2. Excuse me. Now, don't use that number for your organization. Figure it out for your organization. It's a clever programming trick. If you have business intelligence guys who are really hungry to get into data, tell them to figure that out. I have definitely done it in both R and I've done it in IBM Modeler. You just have to figure out the date of the highest gift and then figure out velocity of all the gifts before it. Okay. And then what's my velocity for my annual giving gifts, my velocity for my campaign giving gifts, or my velocity for my membership in your arts museum? Okay. And I actually, when I worked with the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, one of the things they talked about, by the way, was regular members would swipe their card in so that was captured that they came through and visited the museum. But higher level members got concierge service, so it was not captured that they visited. So one time I was chatting with somebody from what's the National Museum in Washington for us, the Smithsonian. And sure enough, they're like, yeah, we don't track when people come in. We have no way of capturing who's there, right? And so a study once told me that they figured out they had maintenance track which tiles had to get replaced more often, and the tiles that had to get replaced more often were in front of the exhibits that were most popular. But figuring out who the people were, God love them. So, so the next thing we want to do is we want to figure out the trigger that indicate that a prospect has arrived at a major gifts level velocity. Now, this does not stand alone. It stands with capacity, right? We have capacity, inclination, and affinity. Velocity is indicating affinity. Okay. And so this could be a dashboard item for you. All right. So what is the velocity just before the major gift? And just like I said, if you have snazzy business intelligence people and you want to figure this out, what you do is you just, for every prospect, you take the gift date of the first major gift right? And you figure that gift date out, and then you collect all the gifts from that prospect before that gift date, and you figure out the velocity just before that gift date, regardless of when it is. Remember that the data science people in the room are probably going to say, yeah, Marianne, but you have to accommodate for the economy, you have to accommodate for COVID, you have to accommodate, and yes, you do. Okay. All right. Questions or comments right now?
Marianne, so when can you say that one more time? When you're trying to create the velocity,
Oh yeah. Yeah, because I
it's
love this. I love this exercise. You want me to
okay.
repeat the how to figure it out part?
Yeah, I have date of major gift and then I lost you.
Okay. So go figure out the date of everybody's first major gift of your major gifts prospects. You got that, right?
Yes.
Okay. Then go collect all of their gifts on that date and before that date. Sorry, go collect all their gifts before that date. And from those gifts, sort them by year and figure out the velocity of those gifts. You can do it using pivot tables. You can do it in Power BI, you can do it in Tableau, and you can certainly do it in statistics software.
Okay. Thank you.
You got it?
Yes.
Okay. Something
There
popped up
is
in
a
chat.
question in the chat. Yeah.
Yeah. What you got?
It is Ruben. He's asking, there is an RFM book. Is there a similar written resource we can reference for velocity scoring?
No, but I should write it, shouldn't I, Ruben?
That sounds like an opportunity, yes.
Yeah. My RFM book is fat. I almost tried to mail it to Ruthie for something that she's doing right now. She's doing a special project that she gets to announce, not me.
Marianne, is it this book, Marianne? The one you sent me?
Let me see. Sorry.
Levy and Pickering?
Oh, yes. Levy and Pickering. Show them how
Yeah.
fat that book is. Yeah. And that's for retailers, right? And so my copy of that has tags all through it. Yep. So I want to do a course on. But you're right, Ruben. I should do exercises in velocity. Just a small workbook. That would be a nice pamphlet.
Marianne, can I
Yeah.
ask you one more question?
Of course.
So, like, if you're looking at the velocity of someone who has given a major gift,
Mm-hmm.
or like a data set of people that have given a major gift, what is that information used for? Is that used to try and find prospects who have the same like touch points to help identify that they would have a propensity? Because once someone's given a major gift, then
then you're all done with them, right?
Right. That's now a donor and not a prospect. So do you use that information to try and bring prospects up to the surface?
Yes. Yeah. And that's a great question, Samantha. You're right that I should step back and walk all the way through the process because I get very excited about things and I skip things. So once you figure out what the velocity of a major gifts prospect was, then go and measure the velocity of people who are not major gifts prospects, because chances are, if you see a difference between the two, right? So at Carnegie Mellon, it was 2.2 for the year before our prospects gave their first major gift, but it was like 1 point something, 1.1 for the general population. So we saw that, Samantha, as the minute somebody's velocity hit 2.2, there was a trigger that told us to check their capacity and see if we wanted to add them into the major gifts pool, or if they were already in the major gifts pool, to tell the gift officer, hey, they just signaled readiness to give a major gift. And we shared those results with our major gifts officers, and they ate it up because they had 150 prospects apiece.
Right.
We all worked for Ron Schiller, who, he doesn't cotton slackers, you know what I mean? So they were like churning and working. And then they said, who's my top 10 focus 50? And the velocity score was one of the things that they could use to figure out their top 10 focus 50.
That's nice. I like velocity scores because it gives you a comprehensive look at a bunch of data sets instead of just like one to sort, which is good because it gives you more of a full picture view. Yeah,
exactly. It's a dashboard. It's a scoreboard. Have you heard me talk about my prospect scorecard, like a baseball card?
No, this is my first exposure to this, to you.
Oh, hey, well, welcome. Okay, so I have been touting for a few years now, ever since I was at Cornell and we were sitting around and we were talking about sports betting because one of us was an athlete and I am a statistician. And I said, what if we had a scorecard? I was reading a book on marketing, actually. The guy said, a retail scorecard for a prospect. And I went, why don't we have one for major gifts prospects, right? Not only their name and their capacity rating, but also what are the other things a gift officer needs to know to make a fast decision about, when I go to Austin, I'm going to see this person first, right? And so then the next thing, then that begs the question, well, what should be on there? So this, to me, velocity, I agree with you, velocity should be a scorecard item, along with RFM, if it's useful, and along with capacity rating, along with probability to make a major gift, which should be handled by your business intelligence team or your data science team, and then along with projected highest gift amount. And then whatever else your gift officers want for their magic. I mean, if you make it too big, then they can't read it on the screen. Thanks for slowing me down, Samantha. I appreciate that.
And just so you know, Marianne, there's 2 votes in the chat for you to write that book on velocities.
Okay. Hang on.
She's writing down notes to herself to write this book or pamphlet.
Okay. I'm going to forget.
I'll remind you.
Greg and Ruth
Yes,
here absolutely
so
used
will
to
I.
be like popping notepads up on them. Okay. Well, cool. Thank you. Yay! I got a project. I can stop pestering Greg to help me with stuff. Okay. So what velocity does, even though Samantha already knows, there's 10 chat things. Should I look?
It was mostly people sharing stuff about that RFM book.
Okay, thank you. Oh,
and
good.
then 1 vote for a good title that you just wrote down in your notepad.
Oh, yeah. If you all want to tell me what a good title would be, especially Ruben, go right ahead. Go ahead.
For goodness sake.
Sorry?
Hello?
Jennifer, do you mean to have your microphone on or?
No, I'm sorry. I did not mean to turn my microphone on. I'm trying to answer a Teams call and all of a sudden everything went crazy. Sorry about that.
Oh, Zoom is so much better than Teams. Didn't say.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Well,
I'll call you back.
Okay. So what velocity does, like Samantha was suggesting, is that it shows escalation in giving rather than thinking about, I've arrived at $1,000, right? So I've visited so many shops where they say, we send around the list of people who gave $1,000, right? It actually shows it shows movement, right? So just like I don't want to use a hunting metaphor. Never mind. Because my other metaphor would be horse racing, and I just don't feel right about that either. Okay. It provides a measure to be tested as an indicator of major gifts readiness. And that's what we're looking for. People in time. That's what we're talking about today. It's not just who are your prospects, it's who are your prospects right now. Okay. It also, in situations where somebody's giving is escalated, you want to tell them that you saw that because everybody wants good attention. I mean, think of all of the needy attention we get now, right? I actually called a gentleman up once and I said, I'm just calling because I just received your $1,000 check. I can't thank you enough because the guy gave like $1 or so, $100 like 10 years before. And he giggled and chuckled. And then the next year he gave $1,000. I called him, gave $1,000, called him, and then I quit my job. So that works, right? But also if my escalation is like, bam, something happened. Now, did it happen in my situation or did it happen in my relationship with the organization? Right? Okay. So this is how you measure velocity. You take the last full year of giving. You want a full year, fiscal year of giving. You want to divide it by the prior 3 years of giving. And 3 is a good one. 5 is harder. If you think about it, 4 years is a presidential whatever, how long a president is in office, right, in the United States. And so when I did a study for GBH, that mattered. 7 years is an economic cycle. 5 years is a reunion cycle for colleges and universities and even high schools. But really, we're going to look at the last 3 years of giving, because that's where my pattern would be. Okay. Oh, any other questions on velocity? And are people writing to me what my title should be?
No title suggestions yet.
Okay, that's okay. I like being a creative one, so thank you for all for participating. All right, so, okay, so RFM. RFM, it came to the fore, well, I'm not going to guess how many years ago, but it feels recent to me. But, you know, I'm someone who still misses disco, so I might have not have the appropriate sense of proportion. So RFM came to the fore recently as a technique that we are borrowing from retail. And so, and retail is how recently did I make a purchase? How frequently do I make a purchase? And what is the total value of my purchasing? It was designed for products like Coca-Cola. Do I have a Coke every day and do I buy it every day? Cigarettes, do I buy my pack of cigarettes every day or do I spend my month's rent buying a carton, right? And so it's a little tweaky, it's a little weird, the idea of using it in giving data. But it's actually helped. It's been helpful. And when I did a presentation with Sally Boucher when she was at Wealth Engine, she actually laid out color schemes that she's allowed me to keep and use. She's moved on to figure out what to do with these values. Like we assign all these scores, and then what do we do, right? So for us, recency is how recently did I make a gift? Now you have to think about when you do this, is it a gift or is it a pledge payment, right? So we always have those two buckets that we have to figure out. New pledges and outright gifts or pledge payments and outright gifts. Because this one, if I make a major gift and a 5-year commitment, I'm going to look less recent than if on my pledge payments count. And so you can decide if you want to do a pledge RFM and a cash in RFM. Right? Depending on how much access you have to the brain space of your business intelligence people, right? Frequency is how many gifts or pledge payments did the prospect make? And remember that frequency makes credit card and payroll deduct donors look a lot more important than major gifts donor. Because if I give my $1 million every year to pay down my $5 million pledge, my frequency is once a year. But if I'm a credit card donor, it's 12. And if I'm a payroll deduct donor, it could be 52. So just remember that when you set that up. And then monetary value is my lifetime giving. And you all get to decide, this is Ruthie's domain to figure out what really counts, right? You all get to decide what is actually a contribution. If you're an art museum, you've got to figure out if artwork itself has value. If you are a small college in the Midwest and people contribute their field of corn and all they can deduct off their taxes is the value of the seed, you've got to figure that out. Right? What counts as monetary value? Okay. So RFM is, I mean, we have a course online if you want to take it. I will go get the link if I need to. But the way you figure it out is you're using percentiles, and we recommend 5. Some of our screening partners they count RFM in like 100 something, and the scores that I don't understand, but this is how I learned them. Every 20th percentile, so the people in the top, you know, people with a score of 5 are in the 80th to 100th percentile, just like SAT scores, right? And the 555s are not only most recent, but also most frequent and also highest monetary value. Your major gifts donors may actually be a 335, given what I just said about how far back in time they pledged and how often they pay their pledges. Okay, and think about it. And this is the book that Greg just held up, Libby and Pickering, RFM and Beyond. Let me tell you, I mean, if you can really dig into a topic, right? That book is so dang fat. But if you want to build RFM scores, consider doing it by segment. So if my RFM to unrestricted are my RFM and the average RFM for everybody in my major gifts pool, right? Everybody in my annual gifts pool. RFM by solicitation method is very helpful because we're starting to say direct mail used to be the cheapest way to solicit prospects because it used to be direct mail, phone calls, in person. And now it's like text to give an email, and then direct mail becomes expensive, right? And we're all pretending we don't do phone calls the minute Stanford said they didn't want to anymore. Okay, we're doing phone calls, right? So by solicitation method, which RFM is the average, right? Or where does the RFM cluster on the bell curve? And then what are the RFMs for the people who are at the highest levels? Because what if they're in the wrong segment? Okay. And it's up to you if you want to use RFM as a punishment tool for prospect managers or this gift officers. And then what funds? So what if you have RFM of 111 for the building fund because you did a building in 1975 and you haven't built something since, okay? And then what is the year by year change? And you can lose your mind using anything as a segmentation. You can do zip code. Greg loves to do mappy things. You can RFM the crap out of a map. You can do occupation industry codes if you have it. You can do generations.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to say anything here, Greg, or are you just like acknowledging that I'm teasing you?
I'm not sure how I RFM the crap out of the map. That's a new one. That's a new phrase for me, but it's definitely something you can use geographically by saying, I mean, obviously one of the factors in RFM is not geography to you, but you can kind of plot that on a map and see, where are our top RFM prospects.
Right.
When you're deciding not only where your development officer should go, but even, where we should draw the sections for our development officers to pull in the right number of prospects by RFM.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that is what I meant. So thank you for helping clarify my, so, I mean, think about it, right? So I remember when I ran a phone-a-thon, like one night we were a little late. So somebody called someone in Alaska and that person gave them $250, non-donor, $250 right off the bat, because who the heck ever calls Alaska? And when you're in Alaska, like, what do you have to do all day, right? So, and of course, I'm making a huge sweeping generalization. I visited Alaska. I know what they have to do all day, right? But she got a phone call from her alma mater. And so she made this $250 gift right off the bat. After that, we went to direct mail. She renewed, we thanked her profusely. It all went like that. Okay. It's just like what Greg is reminding me is that it's just like the real estate question, right? $1 million property in Ithaca, New York, where I am, is a significant property, but $1 million property in San Francisco is not. So even when I talk about capacity ratings, the real estate thing, we have to start from the median real estate and how much I differ from that. So what is the median RFM in Alaska versus New York State versus Florida versus Oklahoma? And then who jumps out from there? And that's what I meant.
Marianne.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Of course. I love that you're doing this.
So I totally understand like $1 million property in LA is vastly different from like $1 million property in like St. Louis, Missouri.
And your dog hates it. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
But just kind of like hear me for a minute from a prospecting standpoint, like when you look at realistically, probably a $1 million property in a nice part of LA would be considered like maybe a $300,000 property, in Missouri, like a 3 or 4. Okay. But to own $1 million property, even if it's in LA, they still have to make enough money to like afford that. So like, aren't they still considered a really good prospect, even though their home is like not as valuable as one? Because I saw that the other day and I thought, well, that's true, but they still have to make enough money to afford that $1 million home.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Mhm.
I agree that there is a certain threshold where you cannot pay a mortgage on $1 million property if you are not at least a leadership annual giving prospect.
Mhm.
Yeah, I hear you on that. And that would be, I would, instead of using real estate as my sole capacity rating, which is what I'm talking about, how, our screening products used to do that. And there was a screening product that would actually take the property value, assume what the mortgage would be, and then assume the person's income if the mortgage was 28% of their income. And then they would double count everything else, right? So things got really convoluted, Samantha. So I hear you. I mean, that is clearly a signal that somebody's worth looking at. It cannot be the sole indicator of major gifts capacity.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yes.
I love that.
And
I love that you're clarifying. I'm sorry, Greg.
since I'm the one who put the bug in Marianne's ear about that, I would just also say that in places where mortgages are very high, very large, where property values are very large,
Mhm.
it's sometimes easier to get a mortgage for a very high value property, simply because I know in California, for example, the rules at least a certain time were a little less tight on what they call jumbo mortgages, simply because every single mortgage in California was a jumbo mortgage at one point.
Yeah.
Whereas
2007.
yeah,
Yeah.
whereas when I was buying my first house, it's like, I'm not going to get it, no matter how much I made in Buffalo, I was going to be looked at very weirdly by the bank if I said I wanted to buy $1 million house. So, there are some indications that it might be easier to buy a more expensive house in a more expensive area, but I believe you are also right that
Mhm.
if that if I'd been living in San Francisco at the time I bought my house in Buffalo, I would have not been buying a house. I would have been buying an apartment, because there are no $147,000 houses in San Francisco. Maybe $147,000 parking lots.
Yeah.
But so yeah,
Yeah.
I do think you're right on that to some
Yeah.
extent.
Yeah, I love that we're talking about the subtleties of it. Like, where is its place in our research? And I'm asserting that can't be the sole piece. Yep. And Greg, you're agreeing. There's a reason why it can't be the sole piece, and that's simply what you just described. In California, I'm expected to buy $1 million house. So, and of course, then I have to demand a salary that supports $1 million house, and then my salary goes to my house. But
Right. So
that's a
essentially
lot
what
of
we're saying
assuming
is that
too.
your disposable income when you're buying $1 million house in Buffalo is probably going to be a bit larger than your disposable income if you're buying $1 million house in San Francisco.
If I have a job that makes me major gifts prospect worthy, yeah. Yeah, actually, yeah. No, actually I agree on that. I agree on that comment on the surface, actually.
And there's a comment in the chat.
Yeah.
There were a few votes for RFM. Was it RFM the crap out of a map merchandise? But there's actually real comments. Not that those weren't real.
Are we gonna make a t-shirt too? You guys are great.
T-shirts and mugs. So Kelly says, then there's factoring in the length of time a homeowner has been in that $1 million house. They may have only paid $350K for it many years ago. Very true.
Yep.
And Marlene also goes on to say, expensive homes have higher taxes and upkeep costs.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah. So all of that are mitigating factors, right?
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, that comment reminds me when I was at Leslie College and I was working a prospect, and the prospect's income, and her husband was a lawyer, and blah blah blah. And I said, well, I think she's still a major gifts prospect because she's been in the same house for 25 years. I think her mortgage is paid, and her kids are grown. And everybody's eyes, got big because it didn't occur to them, right? And that's talking about a prospect in time. Yep.
Exactly.
So speaking of change of wealth, are we good? And are we going to make merch?
Maybe.
I love that. I grasp a new idea.
We need a merch table. We
RFM the crap out of a map. Okay. Okay. So let's talk about triggers. So So talk to us some more if you want some more information about how our RFM works, because I didn't want to overload the slides, right? But triggers indicating changed wealth. The first one is I give a gift of stock. Every client I've ever studied, a gift of stock is an indicator this person is a major gift donor or will be very soon. Donor advised funds, I have to have a certain amount of money to have one. And then you have to figure out what threshold of giving like suddenly pops up that says that I'm doing a test gift, but it's a test gift from a billionaire, right? So at Cornell, we had someone, his first gift was $100,000. And I'm like, of course it is, because that's his equivalent of my giving $10 as a test gift. Because he was a hedge fund guy, right? And then the minute I have a family foundation or I have access to foundation money, I have access to more money. And the minute I give through my company, I'm worth screening. I have to tell you, it wasn't long after my company was founded that I suddenly got a gift officer assigned to me from my alma mater, because I'm sure I got screened, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Marianne, can I
Yeah.
ask you another question?
Of course.
Okay, so like for the DAF, I know that there's a tax break if a donor rolls money from a DAF directly to the nonprofit, they don't get taxed on that, right?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. The reason I was asking is because, like, you know, let's say you're talking to a donor and they're about to sell their company, but they haven't yet.
Right.
And maybe I need to talk to a financial expert about this, but if they roll a portion of the sale of the company directly into a DAF, and then from the DAF to the nonprofit, is there a significant tax break as opposed to rolling the money from like the company into a bank account and then to the organization? But I think I need to talk to a financial person about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a question I would put on up on AASP if you have access to them. The
Okay.
Association for Advancement Services Professionals. I know from my research days that if I start a family foundation, I can put a larger chunk of tax deductible money into that foundation and then take my time distributing the gifts.
Okay.
So
Because I think
I don't
there
know
was
if
a
DAFs work the same way.
Okay. I think there was a recent legal change saying that money from a DAF can be rolled directly into a nonprofit with no tax hits. I think that's
Well,
but
I guess, yeah, because I assume that money from a DAF is a charitable gift from the DAF itself, but I don't, I really have no experience with this question, Samantha. So
there's lots of explanations going on in the chat, by the way, about,
Oh, yeah.
about this.
Okay.
I see that. Thank you.
Yeah, I haven't had to do prospect research since the invention of, not a lot of prospect research since the invention of DAF. So, okay, great. Thanks everybody who's chipping in. Okay. So these are lifestyle signals, right? And society page downloads is just not, it's not what it used to be. It used to be watching the New York Times for who went to the Museum of Fine Art, you know, the Met Gala, whatever was important. We are becoming less, what is it? Entitlement and showing off is coming out of fashion, as you heard me mention earlier in my sarcastic way. So, so this may not hold true anymore like it did in the 80s and 90s. The other piece is that I get entered into a list. WealthX notices me. I think iWave does have a rich list or a prospects of wealth list. If you know, go ahead and pop it up in chat for everybody, and other products that you can watch. And then, just as Samantha mentioned, I'm selling my company. Something has got to happen to that profit so I don't have to pay a crap ton of taxes on it, right? One of the things I can do is what Samantha's talking about, roll it into a charitable vehicle. The other thing I can do is roll it into a planned gift. And the third thing I can do is create an endowment. Okay. Or I could just get the money, pay the taxes, you know, go on vacation. All right. But the piece that we've started looking at over the last 15 years or so is social posts, because we want to show off our stuff and we don't pay enough attention to everybody who's listening. Bragging has become much easier now. When I was at Cornell, one of our business intelligence programmers, he learned Perl, which is, everybody now uses Python instead of Perl and R. But he learned Perl and he was downloading Twitter feeds that mentioned Cornell. And that's how we found out that one of our principal gifts prospects had just published a book. Imagine the kind of relationship work that can get done to say, hey, you know, we just heard about your book. We've ordered a copy. We're so excited. You know, congratulations. How fabulous are you? To know it in time, rather than to wait for the prospect and say, yeah, I wrote my book. I mentioned you. Where were you guys? Now here you are, right? Back to my comment earlier about, oh yeah, we want something from you. And then of course, there's the recognition level jumpers. If I jump a recognition level, acknowledgement has to happen first, and then take a look at me. And this comes back to, if I have capacity, move me up into a segment that's more personalized solicitation and cultivation. If I don't, just really appreciate me. Okay. Okay. The other thing is that noticing when I talk to you. And so I struggled with exercises I could put up on the slide, but really it's going to be custom to your shop, right? However light you want to trigger a review of some kind of any person who writes with a positive or negative statement to your institution. I looked at when I did some research work for Ithaca College last year and the year before, I did a lot of reviews of what the prospects wrote back in as part of my research, what they said back. And some of it was, I really don't like that the president said this. Well, that's going to happen to any organization. Anybody takes a stand, like, I'm going to walk with my left foot forward. There's going to be people who say, I don't like that. And that's human nature, right? But the other piece is that people who say positive things should know. At my alma mater, they actually all talk about me because I rave about what I learned and what I got from that experience of doing my undergraduate work in the middle of the country in the 80s. And so they talk about me because I'm an enthusiastic person that will talk to them. But they also have done their research to just mention to me that, hey, you know, I could start a scholarship fund for $25,000. Sometime in the next 10 years, I might be able to afford that $5,000 a year, right? They know how to put that bug in my ear. That was careful, thoughtful planning. The other thing I learned from Leslie Matson at Leslie College, and she's now up in Jackson Hole, is you want to always answer negative comments. Somebody has to respond to negative comments. If I write to, I had this especially frustrating time with a service where I wrote to them, I could not get the answers to my questions. It was about keeping my website running. I'm talking to person after person after person who made me repeat the whole story and answered all the same questions and made all the same suggestions. And finally, I wrote and said, you know, gave a bad survey. So somebody said, well, we're sorry, but why don't you text us and we'll help you out? So I texted them thinking that my stuff would have been escalated to somebody who would actually listen. And instead, the guy started walking me through the same thing. And I said, stop this. And he said, well, tell me why, you know, you're unhappy with the service. And I put your name on that. You know, it was so bad. Always answer a negative response, even if it's from somebody you perceive to never be able to make a gift, because that person has access to other people. And it's endemic now, right? One of the new quotes that I'm going to put on the merch, right, is, you know, the quote that, was it P.T. Barnum who said there's a sucker born every minute? Was it Ringling or Barnum who said that? I don't remember.
That was P.T. Barnum. Yeah.
It was Barnum. Yeah. There's a sucker born every minute. And I want to put under that. Yeah, but suckers have Yelp now, right? And so you can tell each other, you know what I mean? If I ever do a keynote, that's going to be one of my slides, right? And then you want to track those communications in your database, because I don't want to have to tell the new gift officer every 3 years that I already said, this is how I feel. Stop asking me to support blah, blah, blah that I don't care about. Talk to me about this other thing that I do care about. I don't care if you don't need to raise money for that, right? And remember, one of the signals of a better donor, of somebody who's more engaged, is that I take the time to tell you I won't come to the event. Especially if it's what they call a cattle call event. That's a signal. And so you want to track it. You know, when clients say, well, do we really have to track all this stuff? I go, yeah, you do. But of course I'm biased, right? You know, you stand where you sit. So, okay. So who names you in your social media profiles? Now, watching social media, there's a whole industry, right? Evertrue makes money off of this. I think Relsci scrape. I haven't actually seen a Relsci product, but I think they scrape social media profiles as well. And then who reposts your posts and who comments on your posts and who's always liking your posts. What you see on the right-hand side of the screen is actually from my LinkedIn profile, organizations that I feel associated with. close to. Okay. So one of them is the Habitat for Humanity of Tompkins and Cortland counties. All right. The second is my local AFP, but also there's the Black Sheep Hand Spinners Guild. Notice that the first time I put up the Habitat for Humanity thing, they found the logo, but these other organizations are not on. Racker is, right? And if Racker were following, Racker would notice that. And that's important. So if I proudly put my badge up, I love whatever it is, right? Then that's my close association. So there are other associations that I don't have on here because I just couldn't find them, right? The Brooklyn Lace Guild. Well, lace makers don't bother getting on LinkedIn. They're busy on Facebook showing each other lace, right? But this is a place where we can keep an eye out. Now, we cannot scrape LinkedIn. LinkedIn is very thoughtful about the data that they have, and they don't sell like Facebook does. So we have to be thoughtful about that. But what if I put it on my Facebook page? What do you like? I can scrape Facebook on my page, people on my page. Okay. So connecting my name to the handle, that's something that people ask me all the time. I don't know how to do it outside of paying a service that is licensed through those social media companies. But you can ask, do you have a Facebook page? And then it's in the database. Here's my Facebook handle. Here's my LinkedIn handle. Once I have that, I can keep an eye on it. And it's a matter of, just like Samantha's hinting at us, it's a matter of programming from there. Now, what do we do with all this stuff? If we do it by hand, one by one, we'll never get anything done. So it's about bringing it forward and putting it in front of us in a way that we can digest it fast and easy. And that begs the question, puller or pusher, right? So if you're a pusher, you would like me to push information to you, alerts, emails, notifications, badges, whatever, bing, that says, hey, Marianne, blah, 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 that gift from blah, blah, blah came in, call him and say, thank you. And by the way, he bragged about it on Facebook, right? Pullers are, don't bother me. I want a clean email account. I don't want texts all day. I will go find it at 5 o'clock every night. But pullers have to actually do that work. And of course, I have to talk about sentiment analysis because that was my rage last year. And this was a study I did for my local habitat. And when the Facebook post had, the Facebook or Twitter post had goodness or commitment in it, it actually got way more likes and comments than when it used other words. Right? Participation, whatever, you know what I mean? But goodness and commitment. So now a lot of those habitat posts have goodness and commitment in them. They're warm. They're how to connect to habitat people. Okay, I'm seeing the chat explode. Should I pause for a second?
There's no direct questions. A lot of folks commenting with each other, but no direct questions.
Oh yeah,
I was
you guys are
just gonna say
following.
we were talking about adding information to our databases about donor engagement and where we put them in our particular database.
Oh, Greg, thank you for staying on top of that. Greg is our database partner, and as the person who's supposed to sell his services, I will mention you can do a coaching hour with him. You can sign up for a coaching hour with him to talk about things like that.
Yes, and it's I mean this is the sort of thing that can be added in so many parts of different databases that yeah, it's good to plan on how to do that. So
yeah, start it out ahead of time.
My own standpoint, yeah.
Okay. So talk about lifestyle, right? I get married, I get divorced. One of my favorite graphics from my Cornell days was the one that said men who were separated gave higher average gifts than men who were married, but women who were divorced gave highest average. So she had to wait to get the money, right? And so that was the lifestyle change that triggered, right? Is it the kid done with college, or is it the kids? Do you have like 3 years before the kid gets done with college and gets married and has a baby? And is that still true? Is that phenomenon still true? Am I old-fashioned, right? So you want to stay on track, whether you get Google alerts or some other news alerts. It came up in Prospect L recently. What do you all use for news alerts? And everybody answered. I actually have set up alerts for the top prospects for the one client I worked with this way, right? And use paid resources. If you have any paid resources, exploit them. Even if you don't have a research team, if you still have a subscription to iWave or whatever, just exploit them because you want to stay on top. You want to notice me at a time when it was worth it to notice me, right? Which is why LinkedIn pops up with notifications. Congratulate Susie Q on her promotion to something. And I do, because it's good stewardship, okay? You want to ask about retirement, job changes in retirement. One of the studies I did for a client said that they were more likely to major gift when their job title had 3 letters in it. Imagine, like, when I said, what on earth is this? Is it like VP something? Or no, it turned out to be the letters RET, retired. Okay. And then where are they in their child's life cycle, as I just mentioned, and where are they in their addresses? One of the studies I'm about to do for our next client is, where am I in my life? How long have I been at this address? How long have I been at this job, if it's known, right? And how long have I, how old are my kids? Because once we get to that, what is the sweet spot that says this person is settled down, right? I don't have to buy new flowers for my new apartment again. This person is stable in his or her job and is continually being promoted, we hope, right? And then, or this person is, and this person has a very stable marriage and everything is like, that's all, that stuff is settled. So what is it? What is that scale?
Maslow's pyramid of needs.
Yeah, right. And so I'm past survival, I'm past security, and now I'm ready to give back. So we want to know. Thanks, Greg.
And of course, I had to say pyramid instead of hierarchy because of my gift pyramid.
It's pyramids. Yeah. But it is it's described as a pyramid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other piece is, like, if I could teach gift officers any class, whatever, it would be how to write a contract report worth reading. Right?
I laugh because it's true.
Yes.
I think we're all, thinking
Yeah,
the same thing.
Samantha wants to get in on it. Go ahead.
I can vouch for that. In fact, at my last organization, I literally had to delete contact reports because they were useless. It was like, had a great lunch. I'm like, this is not helpful.
Yeah.
And it was bogging down our system. And so I was just like, you know what? I went against best practices and deleted it.
Right. You just want a code that gift officers saw this person and paid no attention to that person whatsoever.
Exactly.
One of my favorites was, I had the chocolate brownie, and my other favorite was, he mentioned that his cousin was the king of something. I'm like, what's the cousin's name?
Yeah. The king of what?
Marianne.
Go ahead.
Conversely, I had a gift officer who every contact report she wrote was like War and Peace. They were excruciating to read. And despite so much counseling and guidance, just give me the facts. Don't make me read the whole thing, because we tried to output it in a report and it was horrific. It was brutal, but she was set in her ways and she was going to do what she was going to do. So you've got both sides of it.
I'm reading Last of the Mohicans right now, and let me tell you, the adverbs that guy loaded into the one scene where they only had 3 minutes to decide if they had to run or let or fight it out to the death. I was just like, really? Yeah. So I feel you, Robin.
More Hemingway, less Tolstoy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's going on our merch.
Exactly.
Write your contact reports like Hemingway. I like it.
Yeah, more Hemingway, less Tolstoy.
Yeah.
We have to write that down, Greg.
Got it.
Okay, thank you. So in the end, after I told you, you should be doing all these different things that you're like, holy cow, how am I going to add all this stuff? If the technology is not your limit. It really isn't. Your skill set's not your limit. You can pick up a skill set. You can buy technology. Your limit is, can you get the right question? And then after that, can you talk your boss into letting you have the time and the money? Right? Right, Kim? She's probably laughing. Okay? That's not your limit. And so just remember that. And I learned that from the guy who was the editor for Forbes 400. It was Forbes 400, right? He said, The only difference between you guys and us is that we have all the time and the money in the world to keep looking and looking and looking until we find about these people's wealth. We can find it. Divorce lawyers, they have way more incentive than we do. We have restrictions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So set up the technology, it'll move things faster. You can set up the next piece of technology, it'll move things faster. It'll make things more available to you. It'll make things work. When I started in prospect research, it was finding any information about the prospect. That was the hard part, because it was before the internet existed. I would stand in the bowels of the Harvard Business School and look at old Standard & Poor's books. Now, prospect research is how much of all of the stuff that I have to sift through, like Robin's contact reports, is valuable to me. So now it's a matter of sifting, right? It's a different skill set, but we have the technology. Okay. Now, if you're like, how do I do any of this stuff? Well, I have an RFM course up in our Teachable account in our online classroom. But if you want to get started, think about just looking at some of Greg's Excel courses. And so you see it says 0% complete. I think they're $59 each, but you can buy the bundle, or you can buy some of the bundle. Okay.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, Greg is circling the author. That's him, the author, but you can look at our entire coursework.
And I think we have one on RFM as well.
We do.
Yeah.
I did one on RFM.
I put that in the chat, but it's like 10 miles back in the chat.
Thank you, thank you for the vote of confidence, Scott. Yes, I'm very very grateful for that. And I always say that Excel. I mean, Excel. You can do just about everything in Excel. It might take a little longer.
Mhm.
And now that we have tools like Power BI that are starting to come online, we're starting to do things in Power BI too that we used to do in Excel.
Mhm.
So
And then using
so
Power
look out for that
Automate
in
to
the
bring the
future, is
data
I guess
in.
what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Excel definitely will help you to not just do what you're wanting to do, but understand why it works that way it does.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, and the reason I'm touting this course instead of just chatting water cooler chat, because my marketing team said, do not miss an opportunity to try to sell something. So I met my assignment. Okay.
Hence our talk about the merch table.
So this is me. All three of us do offer coaching hours, but please send us emails if you want to just have a chat, right? And you can set up a time to just have a chat. If we don't give you advice, we just talk about ideas. We love doing that because, as you heard, it gives us ideas for what we want to bring to the marketplace to serve you. And it does keep us busy. We're in this business. We're in Stop Hell, not because we're trying to be multimillionaires, but because we love this. And we'll do it whether or not we get paid, but we still have to get paid because we have to pay our mortgages and stuff. So, so we love these topics. It would surprise you how long Greg and I talked about RFM one night.
or even yeah, or $1 million mortgages.
Or Monte Carlo.
Yeah, let's just say I not in that category. So. All
right, I'm going to stop the recording so our team